Hi, I'm John Refrano from VASST, and I'm here to talk to you about a new plugin that we've developed for Sony Vegas Pro called ScatterShot. ScatterShot takes advantage of the 3D track motion that's already built into Vegas Pro, and so you can make stunning presentations like the one you're looking at now, where we've got an area scatter that scatters your videos into space and then visits each one of them. We've got this circle scatter where you can put videos in a circle or in a pinwheel. You can arrange videos in a cube. You can do a video wall. All of these are done at the click of a button. Just a couple of clicks and you'll be on your way to creating presentations like this one. Just saves you hours and hours of keyframing manually by hand. So let's take a look at how this is done. Let's start by looking at how do we invoke ScatterShot. Once you install it, it's under the View menu, and it is a command extension. So you go to View Extensions and you'll see ScatterShot 3D there. You can also place it up on your toolbar like I have here by going to Options and then Customize Toolbar, and then you can find ScatterShot on the left-hand side and then add it to the right-hand side. I've already done that, so I'm just going to click on it up on my toolbar, and that brings up ScatterShot. You'll notice that it's a dockable window. It can come popped out like this, or you can dock it. I like to use it in the docked position. And ScatterShot will take its sources from a number of places. You can use the timeline. You can use media that you have in the media bin. It'll list all your media bins here. Or you can take them right from the file system. I think it's easiest to use right from the file system as you're getting started while you're learning it. And then later on, you can use the timeline and media bin options as you get familiar with ScatterShot. We have the tabs that control the various scatters here. So we've got a 3D scatter, circle scatter, a cube scatter, and a matrix scatter. And we're going to start just with this 3D scatter and show you how easy it is to do that opening sequence that you saw with all of the videos in 3D space. I'm going to click on the Add button to add files and just start adding files. I'll just scroll down and add a number of files. Click Open and you see we've got 24 files in this particular one. Because images really have no length, you can enable this default length that'll say, yeah, bring them in and have them take 15 seconds or however long. In the case of the 3D scatter, we're going to use something called camera moves, and that is going to determine how long the track needs to be based on visiting each one of the videos. So let me just take you through these areas. I like to use a nice big area. So this is the width in pixels, so width and height in pixels, 5,000 pixels by 10,000 pixels deep. You can orient these images being face front, have them randomly face, or no change if you've already arranged them on the timeline in certain directions. And then we have the camera moves options, what I really like, where you can visit each track. And you can determine how long, what is the hold time, how long are you going to spend at each image. The travel time is how much time you're going to spend between going from one image to the next. There's an option here to hide the track after you visit it, which comes in handy when they get too close together and certain tracks block others, so it makes sure that the tracks won't be hidden. And then the distance away from the image that you want to stop when you visit each one of them. And then down here in the options, there's the Add Parent Composite track. And the Parent Composite allows you to move all the images as one. And then later on, we get into some advanced keyframing. I'll show you how to create keyframes at the timeline cursor. And then for doing things like cubes and whatnot, it's nice to be able to repeat tracks, just put in one image and repeat it on all sides of the cube. And then I'll show you how to use the Animate Rotation, which actually adds rotational animation so you don't have to do anything. So let's just look at what this is right off the bat. I've taken 24 pictures. I've selected 3D scatter. I've made no changes. I'm just going to hit the process button. And what Vegas has done, and let me hit F11 so you can see the tracks. What Vegas has done is it's added those 24 images, one on each track. It has added a parent track, and it has keyframed all the motion between the tracks. So let's go back, hit F11, just hit play, and watch what ScatterShot does. So all I needed to do was load in the tracks, press process, I'm done. It's taken all those images, scattered them into 3D space, and then, as if Vegas had a camera, it created these camera moves where it's visiting each one of the tracks, hanging out for 3 seconds, taking 1 second to travel to the next track. You'll notice, we're a little bit away from, so we can see the edges of the track. That was the distance, so we're 100 pixels away from each one of them. And really, at this point, you're done. If you like the way it looks, you take and you save this. So let's talk about saving it for a moment. One of the things you want to do with ScatterShot is get used to using nested projects, because as you can imagine, let's look at this. It's created all these tracks. You're not going to want, tons and tons of tracks right in the middle of your project. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So ScatterShot is meant to be used in a separate project that you're going to nest into your master project. So we would normally take this if we like it, and we would go and save it. So I'm going to hit the save button. I'm going to call this intro background, and we'll save it. Now I would go to whatever my master project is. So let me create a new project just to simulate a master project. Go into the Explorer, and we'll go when we save. So here's intro background. Now the way that you nest a project is you just take this project, drag it, and drop it down onto the timeline. And all of those 24 tracks become one event in Vegas, right? So all of that is nested as an entire project in Vegas. I can go in here and insert another video track. I can take a piece of text perhaps. I'm going to make my title. And then I've got whatever my title is. I play it. I've got those 24 tracks rolling in the background. I've got my titles in the foreground. Okay, and I've compacted all of that into just one track. So the normal mode of operation with ScatterShot is to think about doing things in separate projects and then dropping those separate projects into your main project as a nested project. That's the way it works best. It's kind of like nested comps in After Effects, if you're familiar with After Effects. Okay, so let's go back. We'll create a new project here. And if I had not clicked on visit each track, I just would have got the area scatter. So let's not click visit each track. Let's just process this so we get all the tracks. And once again, let me hit F11 so you can see what it's done. It's created all these tracks. Because I didn't tell it to do any camera moves, it has made the whole thing 15 seconds, right? So that's the default. And it's taken all these tracks and nested them under a parent track. So now the parent controls all of the motion on these events. So I can go to the parent controller and click on parent motion, and now you'll watch these. I'll just scroll over here so we'll be somewhere in the middle, and then I can scroll back, and you can see that we're in the middle of this matrix. I'm going to click here on the parent motion and just show you that I can rotate around these. I really have all these tracks in 3D space, right? So I could take that, and then it created a keyframe, so if I was to play it, you would now get that animation manually. So by adding this parent track, it's an easy way for you to go in after the fact and animate all of these keyframes. So that's if you don't want to use the camera moves to go visit each track. You can move them around however you'd like. Let's go take a look at the circle scatter. I'm going to create a new project again. I'm going to go and edit my list here. For the circle, I don't want to use as many pictures. So the difference between add and edit is edit just gives you this little dialogue where you can go look at the images like this one here. I've got a vertical one. I'm not going to use a vertical one because I want them all to be horizontal. And I think I'm just going to use a couple of them here. Let me just select these and remove them. And there I've got one. I've got 9 left, so I'll have 9 in my circle. Click OK. Now I've got my 9 images, and I've gone over to circle scatter. What you can do in circle scatter, once again, you've got control here to say, here's the diameter in pixels of my circle, here's the angle and degrees of all the images if you wanted to have them at a certain angle and a certain size circle. I like make a ring from the selected tracks because that will let ScatterShot do all the hard work for you. It'll figure out how big the circle has to be in order to fit those 9 pictures into it. I'll just click process. And what it's done is it's created those, and I had here face the tracks forward, and so if we look at each of these tracks, they're going to be facing forward. Now, I haven't added a composite track here, and I did want to, so let me do an undo. I'm going to unclick Create Keyframe, click Create a Composite Track, and I'll probably leave the animation rotation. Again, the rotation could be in the X, Y, or the Z for however many degrees you want to rotate. Let me process this and just play it back. And you can see the tracks were all facing forward, so now they turn with the animation. If I wanted, I can go back, I'll undo this, and say I want them all to face inward perhaps, and then we'll go process this again. And now all the tracks are facing in to the center of the circle. And let me just go into the parent motion again to show you what you have here. I'm going to go move this back and then rotate down a little bit. Just zooming in here with my mouse so you can actually see the tracks here. Hang on. Here we go. And now we'll play this. And again, I allowed it to create a keyframe, so now I've got a keyframe that kind of comes back, shows these tracks circling, and then coming back to the position that they were in the original rotation. One of the other things that I can do, and I did this in the opening, was I went back to ScatterShot and I used the timeline mode. So let me just show you the timeline again. I know we're kind of restrictive on screen real estate here because I want you to be able to see this clearly in the demo. The first thing I want to do is select all the tracks. You can do that with Control A. Control A will select all of your tracks. I can choose to deselect the parent track if I want, but ScatterShot is smart enough to ignore the parent track. So I've selected all my tracks, and there's something I want to do is create a hold keyframe at this point. And that's what this little icon can do here. It'll copy the last keyframe. So it'll take that keyframe there and copy it to here. And that's what I'll do. So now I've got that keyframe down on all these tracks. You'll see a new keyframe was created. And then I'm going to move my cursor just a little bit over. And then I want to do another circle scatter, but this time I'm not going to make a compare it composite track because I have one. I am going to create a keyframe at the cursor, and I'm going to change the tracks to face sideways. And then I'll click process. And now it is changed those sideways, and now we'll just play that, and we'll see how that works out. Now, it didn't do what I wanted because I actually still had it on file system, and it reloaded the pictures from the file system, which we didn't want. And I wanted to have it on timeline. So let me undo, and then let me move back to timeline, so it's just going to work on the selected tracks. I want to quickly make sure those tracks are still selected, and they are. And then let's try this again. So I want to go down and just a little bit after I created this keyframe here, I want to go invoke ScatterShot again. So I'll go process it. Now you see the ones that I had on the timeline change. And so let me move the cursor back a little bit, hit the play key, and now you'll see the rest of the circle happening, and then it shifts to having them face out kind of like a pinwheel. All right, so let me just show you that. I'll move up to the parent track just so you can see kind of what's going on here. Right, let's move back, and again I'll just zoom in and tilt it a little bit, and you can see that it's created this nice pinwheel here. So as it's rotating, it's going to be rotating this pinwheel. So lots of creative things you can do with doing these circle scatters. The other thing, and let me clear this here because it's easier to just show you from the file system, we could have also done a vertical circle. And so I'll just have these face inward. I'm going to go add my parent composite again, and then we'll click process. And now I've got a vertical circle, and when I play it, it's still spinning around on the Y. I could change that. Let's do an undo. We'll make the Y 0, and we'll make the X 360. Process it again, and now it should rotate in the other direction, right? And so now I've got pictures rotating up in a circle that way. So very easy to make either horizontal, vertical circles, have the tracks face in different directions, and then add rotation in the X, Y, or Z. And actually, I mean, we could make this go crazy here. We'll undo. I'll do 360 in two directions, hit process, and then it will spin not only up and down, but left and right, right? So you can do all sorts of stuff. And once again, you can always go back to the composite track, move the parent composite back in space, and then go watch this. And if you wanted it to stay back in space, you would just copy the distance here, the position from this keyframe to the first keyframe, and then you would have both keyframes holding back in space. Okay, let me move over to the cube scatter. So I'm going to clear my project again, do the cube creator. The cube creator, cubes only have 6 sides, so I only need 6 pictures. So I'm going to take 3 off the bottom of this. Matter of fact, let me see if I had a vertical one in there. That won't look too good on the cube. Yeah, I don't need a vertical one, but it's one of the 3 I want to take off. So let me remove these 3. So now I only have 6 pictures, and I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to use the project size. You can also use the media size. So one of the things you can do, and I'll show you this in a second, is we can use media that is actually square and create a real cube. We're just going to use it with these pictures for now. Again, I'll use the project size. I'll take all, you could just create some of the faces if you don't want to create all 6 faces of the cube. You can have them orient outwards or inwards depending on which way you want the pictures to face. I will add the parent composite and do the animate rotation again, and just click process. And I'll go into the parent track motion and move it back in space so we could see this cube, because I want to. Now you'll notice that these are not filling the cube. The cube looks like it's exploded. That's because we told it to use the project dimensions, 1280 by 720, and these pictures are right off a camera. They're not 1280 by 720. They're using a different dimension, and so they don't particularly fill the cube. One thing we can do to fix this is we can go, let's do F11 to show you the media. I can click on Event Pan Crop in the media, and then I can go tell it to match output aspect. Now watch this first image as I do this. Match output aspect, and bam, there it goes. It's out filling its side of the cube. And you would have to do this for each one of the media, but we have a button to fix this in ScatterShot. So let me do F11 again. And let me make sure all these events are selected, because it works on selected events. And I'll do F11 one more time to get back. We'll go to the ScatterShot interface, and we're going to use this icon here, which is Match Project Aspect. When I click Match Project Aspect, watch all the sides of the cubes, because they're going to snap to fill the cube. So I'm going to click it now, and bam, there they go. They all snap and fill the sides of the cube. So this is an easy way of having all of your media match the project and then match the cube if the cube is made to the project size. Okay. And again, we can move that anywhere we want on the screen. We can move it back in space. We can rotate it. And in fact, I think there's already some rotation because we added the rotation when we did the cube. And that's one of the things I did was I took the cube, I stopped it at some point in the cube, and then went on to do the matrix. So that was another thing we did in the opening, was to go to ScatterShot. This time, tell it I want to use what's on the timeline. I'm going to do Control A to select everything on the timeline. So let me just show you this. All right, we're gonna hit Control A now. All the media is selected, so all the selected tracks on the timeline is what we're going to use. I'll move my cursor maybe about here. Again, we'll use this copy the last keyframe, so that it will make a copy of this keyframe here, so it's kind of a hold keyframe. Then I'll come a little bit further, and I'll go to my matrix scatter. And there are 6 sides on the cube, so we'll use 6 sides in the matrix. And here you can see this is set from the last time I used it. Create a keyframe at the timeline cursor, and we'll hit process, and it puts it in a matrix at that point. So now we've kind of keyframed this cube, and let me just play it. I backed up a little. We keyframe the cube to then go reposition itself in a matrix and continue to turn as a matrix. That was part of the opening sequence that I meant. You could also do this right from the get-go, so maybe we'll do a 3x3 matrix. I'll go back to the file system, and we'll add just a couple more files here, so that we have 9 files. So that this tells you need 9 cells to do this. And then we'll add the parent composite, and then we click process, and there you go, they're all laid out. Now you'll notice again that these don't fill in the entire screen, because we've said the aspect should be to match the project of 1280 by 720, and these images don't. And again, we can use this match project output button. I'm going to click this event, do a Control A, so that all the events are clicked. We'll just double check that with F11. You can see they're all selected. We'll go back, and then I will press the Match Project Aspect, and there they go. All of them are filling the screen just as you would expect. Now, another function that I'd like to show you in ScatterShot are these two icons here, the Use Real Media Size and Change Event Length. I'm going to use the Real Media Size in a little bit to show you the cube that I promised I'd show you a proper cube. Let's do the Change Event Length first. We've been using the file system where you add media from the file system and specify how long it should be. But sometimes you're working with media on the timeline, and because the length of the media determines how long something can spin, you might want to change the length of all the media. And, just going in here and changing them one by one, it's kind of a drag. So what we have is an ability in ScatterShot to match the length of all the selected media by the first media. So this first media out here that I have selected will determine the length. And then I just do a Control-A to select them all, and I click on the Change Event Length, and then they all snap to the new event length. So it's very easy. If you have to lengthen the media to do more animation, you can use the Change Event Length to do that. I also want to show you briefly this. Let me create a new project here, and I just want to go out and pull a piece of media. I've got some textures here, because you're going to want to use this outside of ScatterShot as well. I'm just going to take a texture like this concrete texture. Notice when I drop it on the timeline, it fills the screen. This project is 1280 by 720. It fills the screen. If I right-click and look at the properties on this and look at the media, it's only 512 by 512. So what's going on with that? Right, Vegas is automatically scaling everything up to fill the screen. So one of the things that ScatterShot does, because that kind of messes things up when you're trying to align things in Cube, is it has this button that says use the real media size. When I press this, watch what happens over here. I press this, and there it is. That is now taking up 512 by 512 of the screen. So this is a great way to get your media to be the right size starting off. Now let me continue with this to do the cube. So I've got this one piece of media in here, and what I want to do to create my cube is I want to use the timeline, because I've already got my media on the timeline, and I want to repeat the tracks 5 times, because I've got one piece of media. I need 6 sides to make a cube, and so I'm going to do it 5 more times. I need 5 more pieces of media. I'll tell it to use the media size of the first event only, and then we will hit process to make a cube. And there you go. There's your cube. I'm going to open my parent track, move this thing back, and you'll notice the cube is moved in 3D space here because we already have the rotation, right? When if you look at the ScatterShot, we said to animate it in degrees on the X. And so now you can see, I'll just play this, a proper cube in all 4 sides. And I want to rotate that for you a little bit. I'll open this track motion, and we'll rotate this down a little so you can see it really is a cube. And the magic to all this, right, was having the cube come in, the texture come in at the proper size, and that's what this use real media size. And a lot of times you'll have a logo come in, the logo will take the whole screen. Just open up ScatterShot, use real media size, your logo will go back to the actual size the logo ought to be. So that's how you can make a real cube in ScatterShot. So that about wraps it up. Hopefully you've got a good overview of what ScatterShot can do. Look for more of these training videos where we go into more depth on technique on how to use each one of these scatters. But you can see that it's pretty easy to just load in your videos, take all the defaults, click process, and get something happening rather quickly. You can download ScatterShot from our website, www.vass.com. This is John Rufrano for VASST. Until next time, thanks for watching.